Okay, this is the video for the beginning of the identification of unknowns lab. Due to shortage of time, I'm going to be doing the knowns part here for you, and you'll be recording the data, and then you'll do the fun part, which is the unknowns, in class coming up soon. All right, so procedure-wise, we have a fairly simple procedure. It's really just adding a bunch of drops of one chemical to another. I'll be doing this part right here. Got the materials together already. Got my 13 unknowns. Or my 13 knowns rather over here. Your 8 unknowns, by the way, that you're going to get in class are among that group of 13 right there. So you'll have 8 of those 13, so there will be 5 of them that you don't have. We're going to mix them all with each other here in just a bit, and then you'll record the data. Look particularly for the ones that bubbles, the reactions that bubble, because those need to be recorded kind of as they occur so you can remember where they are. And then in class you'll do the reaction for the unknowns. We'll talk more about that either later on in the video or in class. All right, so zoom back out here so we can see the whole grid at once. And I'm going to start the reactions. I'm going to first add the lead nitrates all the way down, and then add the HCl's, etc., coming all the way across, so that my hand doesn't as I work across, my hand won't interfere with smearing any of these drops that are already here. So, in fact, let me move the pipettes over here to this side, and I'm going to put 2 drops of lead nitrate all the way down for this reaction. No reaction yet. I'm just the first reactant, lead nitrate, all the way down here. And then we're going to go with the HCl in the second column. Again, we're not really reacting yet. Just kind of lining them up. Now when I get to the bottom of this row, I'm going to go around the corner here to the left, in between the HCl's, and this will be our first reaction actually right down here. So we get a white precipitate right down here, a nice bright white precipitate. Na3PO4. And then come around the corner for the Na3PO4. That looks like a no reaction. And there's another white precipitate. Then we go to the Ki. And come around the corner. And there's a bright yellow precipitate. That's a very helpful precipitate when you're doing your reactions. Here's the copper sulfate next. I want to draw your attention to the fact that the solution itself is blue, and that is a very helpful clue when you're doing the unknowns. Whoops, that's like 4 drops. So on the grid here, it'll appear, it probably won't show up on camera very well, but it'll appear pale blue. That would be, if it stays pale blue, that's kind of a no reaction. Now around the corner. All right, we got a couple things here. We got kind of a tan precipitate here, a white precipitate here, and another white precipitate here. And we've got the H2SO4. Around the corner. This is pipette's creating some bubbles here. Those aren't bubbles in the reaction, it's just air bubbles coming out of the tip of the pipette. So if you're seeing some bubbles, don't worry about those. I don't see anything really of significance here, at least yet, but there's definitely a white precipitate here. Here's our NaOH. Around the corner, nothing. And we're getting some kind of a slimy blue precipitate right there. Nothing. And a nice white precipitate. You can see the lead's kind of 6 for 6 here in terms of the reactions down at the bottom of the grid here. Then we're on AgNO3. And around the corner, there's a nice dark brown precipitate. That's a nice one. Nothing there. Not much. I don't see anything there. You get kind of a yellowish precipitate forming. Not the bright yellow down here. There's another one. No reaction though for the first time for the lead nitrate. If you think about it, the silver nitrate and the lead nitrate, it kind of makes sense. Here's our you don't get a reaction. Here's our calcium chloride. So that's next over here. Around the corner, precipitate, precipitate, white precipitate. No reaction, at least not yet. This one we're going to come back and look at. Notice that on your grid there's a letter C in that box. That's one to come and look at. Right now nothing has happened. White precipitate there, and a nice white precipitate there. There's our nitric acid, HNO3. Around the corner, nothing, 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 nothing. Ignore that air bubble, that'll pop, that's just an air bubble. Notice the nitric acid has done nothing so far. Now we haven't reacted these three yet, but nothing along this entire stretch. We're now at Na2CO3. And we've got, I'm going to just push out an air bubble down here. There we go. And around the corner, there's bubbles. Nitric acid bubbles right there with the Na2CO3. You get maybe a little bit of cloudiness, not much. I don't know. I'm going to call that none. There's a white precipitate. NaOH. There's bubbles again. H2SO4. You're getting a little bit of a pale blue precipitate with that one. Ki, not much. Na3PO4, I don't see anything. HCl, we're getting bubbles again. So notice that 3 bubbling reactions occur. Let me finish this off here. And a white precipitate. So we had bubbling occur here with the Na2CO3 and the HCl. With the Na2CO3 and the H2SO4, and the Na2CO3 and the HNO3. Here's our FeCl3. Again, notice the color of the pipette is yellow. For your unknowns, by the way, these are pipettes that have been used for years. Sometimes, possibly some of these up to, probably some of these up to maybe 20 years, to be honest. So anyway, these get kind of cruddy looking after a while. Yours will be a yellow solution, but the pipette won't be as cruddy. That reminds me, back here with the silver nitrate, your pipette will not be this kind of grayish brown dingy color because it's a newer pipette, FeCl3. So we have 2 drops here. And then around the corner we got kind of this rusty color precipitate. Now, if the solution shows up pale yellow, that's kind of to be expected. Like these two, I'm not sure I would call those reactions because the solution's yellow in the first place, so they're really not a reaction. That definitely is kind of it's a white precipitate in a yellow solution. It looks like a light yellow precipitate. There's the sodium hydroxide. It's getting a little bit of a slimy orangish precipitate in there. The FeCl3, and finally the NH3 is our last one, and that's going to just be all the way across the top here. So I'll start at this end, actually, get the air bubbles out of that one. White precipitate, no reaction, no reaction, no reaction. There's a nice blue precipitate. Okay, I'm going to come back to that. Let me finish the row here. And over here, NH3, we got kind of a amber, maybe a kind of an amber color. There's a nice little amber color over here as well. So that's kind of interesting. If you kind of freeze that now. You can jot down your observations, maybe zoom in on that a little bit. I can possibly move this around a bit. Let me do that. Let me zoom in. Let's redo this. Before I do that, let me redo this reaction. I want to show you something with the copper sulfate. I'm going to do a couple of drops of copper sulfate over here. 1, 2, 1, 2. And then add some ammonia to that. But I'm going to add 2 drops of ammonia here, and we get this blue precipitate. If I add 1, 2, 3, 4 drops, I get this nice deep blue solution that forms, kind of a royal blue solution there. So it's possible you could get, if you're doing this with your unknowns, you could get a couple of different. Let me kind of mix these up a little bit. I can do this by just kind of pushing some air into that. So these two are the same reaction, but notice that they get a little bit different results. All right, so there's the grid. I'm done with the chemicals now. So you'll record all of that into this grid, and I want to take a picture of this. I'll take a picture with with my camera here, and post that to the Moodle site as well as a separate document. Let's try zooming in here just a little bit as well. And I've got it taped down, so let me release this with trying not to spill these things. I shifted a couple of them up there at the top. All right, so here's the grid up at the top that gives you a better view of some of these. This goes down to AgNO3. I'm going to try and do like 3 quadrants here. That doesn't make sense, does it? Let me try and focus this myself here. There we go. So you're getting from NH3 all the way down to AgNO3. Got 12 rows there, and we've got out to H2SO4. So you've got that grid right there. You can pause it if you need to see something a little bit more detailed. Now let me shift this up, and I'm going to have to go AgNO3. I'm going to have to shift the camera here. All right, there's NaOH down to the last row with the HCl. One more notch. There we go. There's the bottom little section of the table. Some of them shifted, but you can still see where they belong. That's an interesting little precipitate there. That of course, that bright yellow one's a nice one to work with if you happen to see that in your unknowns. But that orangish one's kind of interesting as well. All right, again, you can freeze frame that. Kind of pause the video if you need to at that point. There's a close look at those two. Precipitate, and then the precipitate dissolved, because yeah, they're pretty blue. And then in the upper corner up here, we have, remember the first close-up I gave you came out to H2SO4, so here's the last 6 rows. There's kind of that reddish brown precipitate that forms. These shifted a little bit. That no reaction belongs there, that no reaction belongs there, but they're both no reactions. Now, there was one that I wanted to have you come back and take a look at. I can zoom in here. Let me get the camera back to where it was and get a little bit closer on the reaction just to the side of that brown precipitate. Right there's the AgNO3 NaOH. And initially that one, let me get a pointer here, initially that one had done nothing. And now you've got this kind of grainy little precipitate down at the bottom that has formed. So note where that one is. On your table, that has the little letter C in the table. All right, so there's our grid. I'll get a picture of that. I'll wipe out some of the extra junk there. I'll get a picture of that and kind of post that. So when you're doing your unknowns, you're going to get kind of get that out of the way, and hopefully I won't spill it when you're messing up. When you do your unknowns, let's see here. Sorry, I'm taking. I messed it up. Oh well. We'll have to get it from the grid a little bit later on. Let me go ahead and tell you about the unknowns part of this. So you're going to get a cup of unknowns, and in that cup of unknowns there is 8 pipettes. So this is cup number 10, for example. It doesn't have any solutions in it right now. You'll have your lab report, and on the back of your lab report, let's find a version that's similar to yours. So on the back of your lab report, you're going to have down here at the bottom, you've got the unknown numbers. So you'll be writing your unknown numbers down here and some formulas in just a little bit. So that's one place you want to put these 10 pipette numbers. They don't have to be in numerical order or anything like that. You just need to have not 10 of them, there's 8 of them. And then you're going to have 2 grids. One grid you're going to take notes on, and one grid that is going to go inside the page protector that you're going to use. And so give me a minute or two to just kind of explain how this is going to work. You want to take your unknowns and make sure you don't mix them up with somebody else's, so kind of stay somewhat separated from your neighbors in lab. And we're going to write down these unknown numbers on the grid. Both of these grids will be done the same way. So for example, this is 7488. Let me get back to an autofocus here. I can go in a little bit. So this is 7488 right here, and this is 1572, and this is 4225, and this is 8749, and this is 1032, 5606, 3174, and then the 8th pipette. That's 7 of the 8 pipettes, and then the 8th pipette, number 6467 in this case, needs to go around the corner right here. That's 6467. Once you've got those in place, have all those accounted for, you then finish the grid. So this 6467 also gets written over here. And then the 3174 gets written here, 3174, and then go horizontally 3174. And then the 5606 and the 5606. And you just keep doing that. Four 225, 4225, 1572, 1572, and then 7488. And so that is a grid set up in the same manner that your knowns grid is set up. And then you'll be able to slip this into the page protector and do your reactions right here. As a starting point, just to kind of see what kinds of precipitates, if you get any bubbles, what color precipitates you have, so you have something to kind of compare to the knowns grid that we did. There's also a couple of rows of X's down here at the bottom, and those rows are for you to do some additional testing of your unknowns with your knowns. You should do the same set of numbers what you did here, duplicate that over here. And then this is for taking notes, and you got some extra space to just jot down some ideas of what you want to test next and things like that. So tomorrow in class, with this known information, you'll be able to grab that cup of unknowns and get it all laid out. It's going to take maybe 3 to 5 minutes to just kind of do all of this layout. Get your numbers down on this sheet of paper. Get your numbers down on this sheet of paper. Get your numbers down on the grid on the back of this sheet of paper. So get all that kind of taken care of, and then start running the tests and trying to use some logic and some of the chemical reactions that you recognize to try and figure out what the unknowns are. All right, good luck with that tomorrow.